Howdy, Ben Klein again, here for speech 2. This speech is titled Raising the Confidence in Confidence Intervals. Let's get started. A hypothesis test tells us whether the observed data are consistent with the null hypothesis, and a confidence interval tells us which hypotheses are consistent with the data. And that's a quote that comes from math.wpi.edu, as well as a fellow statistician in William C. Blackwell. Today we're going to be covering the technical topic of confidence intervals and explain two very important components of their creation and utilization to show why they are the most important tool in all statistics. We're going to be discussing what confidence intervals are, quickly go over how they work, how they tick, and then go into those two components of predicting means, and especially showing why accuracy is such a very make or break situation in a lot of studies. But like I said before, first we're going to be going into what exactly a confidence interval is. Now, confidence intervals are the basic essential tool for statisticians and those who predict certain things around the world. They tell us how confident we are in certain means, in certain guesses that we have as mathematicians and statisticians. That comes from userzoom.com. They give us a high and low limit on how confident we are in a certain guess. As we can see in this photo before, it can go from anything from financial things to sports predictions in the world. It also kind of tells us where we should expect a certain event number possibility to happen. And it also does this interesting thing of adding an actual numerical attachment to the confidence interval to show you there is a certain number or percentage of confidence in that guess. So clearly, for example, 99% confidence intervals versus 95% confidence intervals, you're going to want to more go towards 99 because that clearly shows more confidence. And going off on that a little bit, you would say that lower is worse in a sense, unless there's a couple very specific situations that occur. We will talk about that very soon here. So the next thing we need to talk about is how they actually work. How do we actually use these things? Confidence intervals can be used to show what the actual mean, maybe in a set of data, with a certain level of confidence, like I said, attached numerically. And that's a really big thing to think about. We get that from minitab.com. A big thing about that is the size of the sample that you're dealing with in a data set. Typically, a larger data set will give us lower confidence, as we can see in this image here, given the equation of the confidence intervals. More observations make confidence lower. That also comes from userzoom.com. And truly, they can be catastrophic. Using a sample size that is too large can actually make a lot of issues happen. And it can be anything from your homework to, national security. It is that big of a deal. Another thing to think about is if anybody's ever heard of point estimates, whoever's listening to this, confidence intervals tend to be greater than point estimates. Reason being because they tend to, predict more precisely than a point estimate. Though it may not sound like it, confidence intervals will actually give you a better shot at getting a prediction in a range rather than an actual point estimate. And the things that point estimates don't have as the main competition of confidence intervals is varied levels. That's a really big thing. Now, like in the first paragraph I was talking about, some lower confidence intervals may actually be helpful, and they may be beneficial to us, and that's what we're about to get into next. So confidence intervals can be small. They can be all the way down to almost 65%. The good thing about this is you're having a lower spread of values. A 65% confidence interval in a certain mean or data point could give you a skinnier or less spread out point of values, but too low, say if you go more towards 60, you may be going into the bad accuracy territory. Now, 65 being a kind of gray zone is okay, but we would like to stay more towards that 80 to 90 range just to be safe. Now, 99 being greater than 95, as we said in a previous example, and that may only be 4%, but that can make a huge difference from going from 99 to 95. We may miss values, and that can be extremely useful in your data. Another way to think about using those is it's a bit of a double-edged sword. You may get the wrong info, and getting a small mistake in your data, especially in your data analysis, can make a small mistake become a massive problem, a very, very massive problem. And we'll go down to these slides really quick just to show you. As it shows you in the picture, 19 out of 20 samples produce confidence intervals of 95%, containing a certain parameter in a population. Just kind of explaining that double-edged sword. You can be right, you can be wrong at the very same time. They are very, very tricky to play with. So, the importance of confidence intervals is very clear, in my opinion, even to some of their most essential elements. And what we're going to do next is talk about wrapping everything up and kind of talking more about how confidence intervals really kind of wrap everything together in the way we predict. So, as we said, we talked about what confidence intervals are, explained two very important components to show why they're the most integral part of statistics, and kind of dug a little deeper into how they can be applied to the real world. We also talked about most likely means, and how dangerous they can be, almost fatal at some points, depending on how they are applied in certain situations. Another way to think about this, as we kind of finish up, is though confidence intervals can truly change everything around you with just a slight adjustment in the confidence. So a good way to wrap this up would be, let's start raising our confidence in confidence intervals. Thank you. And for the note cards, I have these right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and the conclusion.